Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Thursday night live. I'm Michael Harbridge. I am here with my wife Janine, is here listening or watching for questions. If you have questions as we're doing this, you can type those in, and she'll try to get my attention and answer them as we go. We're going to give just a minute here for everybody to get in and find this room. Tonight we're going to be showing you the finishing technique on these snowballs, sphere shapes, and they can also be turned into ornaments. So we're going to talk about overglazes, we're going to talk about the fired finishes, different products like color concentrates and stroke and coat and clear glaze, and we'll talk about the brushes. If you missed the live on how these were made, I did that yesterday with ClayShare, and I'll post a link to that in the comments to this live tonight as well, later after this is over. So you can go back and watch that if you didn't see the process of actually building the pieces. I didn't fire these pieces that were made last night. I've got other ones here. They don't dry that fast, so I've got other ones that I had done. So let's get started. Thanks for joining us. We're going to use a couple different products tonight to show the different finishes on these pieces. I'm going to be working with Mako Stroke and Coat. You can do the same thing with products like Concepts. You can use the color concentrates from Colors for Earth. We're going to use those as well tonight. And I'm going to show you the difference between like the speckle effect on here. You can see the little speckles on here. That's actually done with the color concentrates, and I'll talk about why I like those better than a product like Stroke and Coat for the speckles. And then we're going to do overglazes, mother of pearl. We'll talk about fired gold, white gold, yellow gold, and little tips and tricks for that as well. So I am going to flip the camera down here, and we're going to do both of these sphere shapes. I've got the one that's done with the coil method and the one that has the snowflake design. And last night I had talked about how, you know, if you're not doing this just for winter and you want to do a garden sphere, using the bark texture pads, and I'll show those later on, to do your texture on this. They're great, especially when you work with like stoneware colors or glazes like elements that kind of break on edges and get two multi-tones. They're great for that. So, you know, not just winter, you can do the same technique for different times of the year. So we're going to start out working with Mako Stroke and Coat, and this is a fired product, and normally one coat of this gives you kind of a translucent effect, 2 coats gives you more opaque, 3 coats gives you solid coverage if it's applied while allowing the colors to dry in between coats, and use a nice soft brush to apply it. We're going to actually do a wash with these colors tonight, so I'm putting a little bit of the Caribbean blue, the SC76, in a little plastic cup, and I'm going to dilute this with water. And we don't need real solid coverage with this, and so I'm diluting about half water to half color, and I'm using a stiffer bristled fan brush to mix this color up and to apply it to the surface. And I'm going to we'll actually do the snowball one first. Oh, it doesn't really matter which one I do first, because we're going to just brush a coat of this on. And the reason I dilute it is because on textures like this, I want it to get down into all of the crevices and the openings. And with it thinned, it will easily flow into those areas. And I'm just kind of dabbing. The reason I'm using a stiffer bristled fan brush is because I can kind of poke at it and get down into all those textures. The same will be true on the coil one as well. If you use a real soft fan brush, like a goat hair fan brush, these are great for applying glaze, but sometimes you can't get down into the textures because the bristle is more floppy. So this one is a blend of a synthetic and a hog bristle, and this also has a longer handle, and I'll talk about that when we're doing the coil sphere, because sometimes you want to get onto the inside of pieces, and so this longer handle, this is longer than a standard handle brush, allows you to get up inside easier. So we're just going to put a coat of this on, let it puddle in the crevices. We're going to let it dry. It doesn't need to be even. It's going to look blotchy. It's going to look streaky. And we're going to end up wiping this back. Now, you can do the same thing on these using the color concentrates. And you can thin those down. And they're a little bit more concentrated color. So you can probably even thin those down more. And you'll be able to tell when you start brushing it on. If the color isn't diluted enough, it's going to just kind of brush on and it's not going to flow. It's not going to get into the crevices. And so products like the color concentrates are basically just pigment. There's no frit in this product. And so this is just pigment, and it's more concentrated. So you can dilute that probably even a little bit more. So once I've got the coat on here, I'm going to just set it aside to dry. I'm going to do the same thing here with the coil sphere. Now this one, I want to get down into all the crevices, and I'm also going to do the inside. You don't have to do the inside on this one, but if you're going to put like a string of lights inside, especially if it's going to be clear lights, on the inside, you can see the color is kind of running and flowing inside here as I hold it up onto the camera. And so we're going to try to brush some really diluted color and some water into the inside. I'm just going to mix up a little bit more of the Caribbean blue here. And if you're wondering, on the green sphere, this was done with the Just Froggy, which is the SC8. And then I also did red, and the Hot Tamale works good for that. Ruby Slippers if you want something a little bit darker. Or, what did I use? Candy Apple. Candy Apple Red, the SC73, is what I had actually used on the sample that I have here. So I want to get this on the outside. And I'm kind of working, you see, kind of going in a circular motion as I do this, because then it will get into all of the down in here, and I don't have to sit there and try to get into every opening. This is actually really quick and easy to do this method. Now on the inside, I'm going to dilute this even more, and I'm just going to bring my bowl of water over and add some water here. And with this longer handle brush now, I can get onto the inside. I don't need the inside to be as dark as the outside, so that's why I'm diluting this even more, because I basically just don't want it to be white inside. And I can take just water on the brush and brush over this and really stretch out what's in there. And it'll get rid of the heavy drips that went onto the inside and just eliminate the real bright white areas. And I can actually pick up some of the color on my surface here, and I can work my way around. Looks like I need just a little bit more.
Someone said coloring the inside does make a huge difference, it looks like.
Yeah, and you know, sometimes too, I know last night Jessica showed, after my live, she did her Premier member live, and she showed tinting clay in there. And I was thinking, oh, we could extrude these all with tinted clay, and they'd already have a color to them. A lot of times when I do like the pumpkin technique with this, I will do terracotta clay instead of white clay, and then the inside of my coil pumpkins are actually orange, and I don't have to worry about adding any color to the inside. And then I'm just going to look for, I can see a couple little areas here where I don't have any color in some of these grooves. And it's not imperative that every single spot of this is covered, or every single spot on the inside is covered, because we're going to take a sponge and we're going to wipe this back. So I've got a big bowl of water here. with a sponge. Normally, I would take this back by my sink in my workroom, and I would just have the water running and rinse it and just be constantly wringing the sponge out. But I'm not next to the sink here. So I'm using like a cleaning sponge, and I'm just going to wipe across the surface and wipe back. Now these pieces too, I think I mentioned at the beginning, these are fired. These are bisque fired. They're not the ones that I built last night because obviously they weren't dry enough to fire overnight. I did these earlier in the week and got these fired. So we're working on bisque. And this will work on earthenware, which is what I'm working with here. That's some Cone 04 bisque made with earthenware white clay. But you can do the same technique if you're working with mid-range clay. If you're working with a buff-colored clay instead of a white background, you're going to get more of a buff color. If you don't want that buff color, you could do a white underglaze over this before you fired it, and that would give you a whiter background when you wipe it back. And it's important that, and I keep turning the sponge as I wipe this back, and then I rinse it out once I've used all sides. And you can see how easy that is and how the color puddles down in the deep crevices. Now, if it's too dark in an area, I can go back and wipe a little bit more off. But that really brings out the detail of all the textures, whether it's snowflakes or cactus or bark texture, whatever you've done on that piece. And on the coil one, it's really the same thing that we're doing. We're wiping it back, and you want to expose the smooth areas, and you want the color to stay down the crevices. And when you do this with the coil pieces, it really makes the coil design stand out because you've got whatever darker color down in the crevices. Never done it where I've done like a black underglaze on the piece and then did a wash with a lighter color. That might be kind of cool too. Might have to try that. And with this too, I'm rinsing the sponge out and wiping it back so I get back to the light white of the bisque. And then the color is just in the crevices. Now on the inside, it's still pretty dark, and I can take that same brush with just water, and I can go over the inside and kind of scrub to lighten it up if I wanted to. But that's why I purposely did just a real light wash of color on the inside so that I see blue in there rather than heavy drips of dark blue and then real white areas next to it. If I wanted to do even a different color on the inside, I could. The problem with doing that is if I did, say, yellow on the inside of this, that yellow might run onto the outside. So if I was going to do a different color on the inside, I would probably, well, I was going to say I would do the inside first, but then when you do the outside, that's going to run in there. I probably wouldn't do a different color on the inside. Now as I'm actually saying it, it would be difficult to do a different color on the inside because it would run out after or would run out before, and the color from the outside would run in. So yeah, probably stick with the same color, just dilute it more for the inside. So we've got our wash done on here, and now I do a speckling on the surface. And I mentioned that the stroke and coat works good for doing this type of a wash on here. The color concentrates also work, so you can use either product for that. I do like, for the speckling technique, I like using the color concentrates better because they are more concentrated. So in order to do the speckling, I'm going to dilute the color. And if I take the stroke and coat and I dilute it, and I do my speckles on there, the speckles won't be as bright as they are if I use the color concentrates. And with the glare of the light here, it's not as easy to see. But when you dilute stroke and coat that much and you have such small specks, especially lighter colors, they don't show up as well because there isn't as much pigment left in there when you dilute it. I find that things like black, generally, I get good results with the stroke and coat. Some of the darker colors will work, but I really like the color concentrates better for this. So I'm working with the cobalt blue and the purple sage. We're going to put a little purple on here as well. And we'll put a little bit of, we'll put some red. I don't want, this will almost be patriotic. This will be my 4th of July one, and we could speckle it with gold and silver too. And then I'm using a stiffer bristle, the hog bristle brush, versus that soft goat hair for doing my speckling. That soft hair, you don't generally get a real good flick of the bristle with it because once it's wet, it's real soft. So we're going to take, and I usually just pull, and I have a little bit of moisture in the brush, not a lot. I don't want it dripping with water. And I'll kind of pull a puddle of the color out and load the bristles, but I don't want the bristles dripping with color. If you have too much color, you're going to get really big speckles and splatters on your piece. And when I do this, I'm basically bringing my finger up on the bottom of the bristles and pulling it back like this and letting the bristles flick back toward the piece. And I want to be about 6 inches away from the piece. And I just keep taking my finger and pulling upward and flicking those bristles back at the surface. Some people get kind of crazy and this hand starts moving and this hand is moving and they end up with color everywhere, including probably on their face. So really, you're mostly bringing this finger up and flicking the bristle by doing that. Now, if you have too much color in here, you're going to get big blobs. If the color's too wet, you're going to get big blobs. If you don't have enough wetness in there, you're going to be flicking that bristle and you won't get any color showing up on your piece. So if you don't have any color showing up, it's either the color isn't thin enough, or I had somebody once, they flicked from the top of the bristle down. Well, guess where that color went? It flicked right up in their face, and they came walking into the classroom when I had my studio, and she's like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but she's like, I keep flicking, and I'm just not getting any color on there. And everybody started laughing because her face was full of color, and she didn't even realize it because it's such a light little speckle that's getting on there that she didn't even feel it.
You're not having fun until there's color on your face, Melanie Koffel said.
Yeah, well, and my surface here, everything around here is going to be covered. The other day I had my phone sitting out on the table, probably, over here about 6-8 inches away. And when I went later to swipe on it, my screen was covered with little speckles of every color that I had splattered. Nice thing too is the color concentrates dry real fast when you're doing the speckling. And so I just kind of go over the whole surface, give a light little speckle of that color. We're going to do it on this one here. So make sure you don't have anything sitting nearby that you don't want speckles on, or I will usually put like a cardboard box and kind of do it inside of a box so that I kind of catch the little speckles. And be careful too that you don't use that finger to move the piece because you will get color all over. So you can see I'm kind of using my thumb and another finger that doesn't have color on it, because fingerprints will show up. And if that happened, let's say I mess this up at this point, I could just take a sponge and wipe over either that area or wipe over the whole surface and take off the speckles and then just respeckle it. Little speckles too. I do speckling on a lot of glaze pieces, and I do it for a couple of reasons, because the speckles sometimes disguise little mistakes. Sometimes you'll get, with a clear glaze, you can get a little speckle of something that shows up and you'll get this darn little blue spot right in the middle of a white area, and it really stands out. If the whole thing has a little bit of a speckle on the background, it's not as noticeable. Now I'm going to the purple sage, doing the same thing, and I'm going to give a light speckle of purple. Now some of the colors, when you get into like purples and pinks, if you're working with mid-range, test it. Sometimes the clear glaze that you use can make a difference as well, but surprisingly, like things like the reds come out really nice and vibrant in a like cone 5, 6 firing. Some of the colors will even work up to cone 10. And it's true of stroke and coat, it's true of the color concentrates, but a lot of times the pinks and the purples are the ones to really watch and test them on something before you use them, because sometimes that color will burn out or get a little bit lighter or completely change. A lot of times it just kind of burns out, but some of the color concentrates I've had really good luck and results with firing it to like cone 5, cone 6 temperatures. So, but I have found that the clear glaze you use sometimes will make a difference as well. I know Paula has a chart that shows some of the colors fired to the higher temperatures. I keep meaning to put that on my website, and I keep forgetting every time I do a live and I talk about it. I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta do that. Mm-hmm. I'm going to add a little bit of red. We do have the stroke and coat kits and the color concentrate kits on our website, which is learnfiredarts.com. We've got those on special. The number 1 color concentrate kit is probably the best seller. There are 4 different kits. The kit number 4 has all the colors, and Paula has a nice little color chart that shows them done with like a brush stroke design, where you'll get kind of that opaque where it's heavier and more translucent, where you pull that stroke out, and the rest of the chips are shown, you know, putting it on for solid coverage. So there's a good variety of colors there, and then she's got the kits that have the different ones in there, and they come in 1 ounce and 2 ounce sizes. So we've got kits for all of those, and they are all in stock and ready to ship. I think all the orders that came in from our live yesterday, I went through all of those orders today, and we started pulling and shipping. And I think by Monday, most of those orders should be shipped. There were a few items, some clay cutters and things that people ordered that they were notified that they were on back order.
Someone does have a question. Won't your speckles bleed if you don't let them dry in between colors?
They won't bleed because they dry. The bisque is porous, and so when I put these little specks on there, they dry almost instantly. If you get really big blobs of color, they're going to take a little bit longer to dry. So when I did the blue, by the time I got the blue done and I started mixing the water with the purple and I started speckling, all that blue was dry. Mm-hmm. And all of the red that I did on here is now dry as well. So
they could just add, they wish they could just add your website to their payroll deduction. Kind of like a FSA or HSA.
Yeah. So then I will let these dry, and then I'll apply a clear glaze to them. And so, you know, any clear glaze that you're working with, you can use. Now, talking about bleeding, these colors aren't permanent until they're fired. So if I start brushing clear glaze on these immediately, and, you know, the color is a little bit damp, especially because we wet that color a lot, and so the piece is damp. So I would let this dry for probably a couple hours before I would apply the clear glaze. If I apply the clear glaze and I brush too much on there, when this color gets wet again, it's kind of like watercolor. It's going to soften up and it's going to want to smear. So it's real important when you apply your clear glaze that you use a real soft bristle brush. And so I just want to, I'm going to show you guys some different brushes and talk a little bit about it. And I know some of you have heard a lot of this in the past, but it can be deceiving when you look at different brushes, like fan brushes, especially. A lot of people like fan brushes for glazing, or mop brushes. There's different types of hair, and even though all three of these look almost identical, these are very different. There's what's most common for glazing is the goat hair, which is the real soft hair for glaze. And look at how nice and full, this is actually a size 12 fan brush. Look at how nice and full that is. So it picks up a lot of color. This one that looks very similar, it's not as full, but this is a bristle. So this is hog bristle. Even though it looks the same, it's very stiff and rigid. And this is where it's good when you're on a texture piece and you're trying to get into all the crevices and things. A stiff bristle brush is good when you have a lot of texture, or crystal glazes. This is good when you have to scoop in for that third coat to kind of pick up the crystals and dab them on a piece, but not the best brush for applying glaze on a big smooth platter, because that stiff bristle is going to drag the glaze out more. And you're not going to get, when you're putting 2 coats or 3 coats of glaze on, you're not going to get as good a coverage with that stiff bristle. So good for speckling, good for texture. Generally on a texture piece, I will use that brush for the first coat when I've got a lot of deep texture to get down into the crevices. And then the second and third coat, I'll go to my softer bristle. Now, that soft bristle, that goat hair, you'll find that in a lot of fan brushes, wood handle fan brushes, acrylic handle fan brushes. The advantage to acrylic is if you tend to leave your brushes sitting in water, the acrylic won't absorb moisture like a wood handle can do, and a wood handle will expand, and then the paint starts flaking and falling off, and the head on there gets loose. But goat hair is a great hair. Hake brushes, these are generally made with goat hair as well. And we just started carrying a set of 3 of these, and they're on sale for $9.95 for the set of 3. But these are also goat hair, and they're nice and soft. So when I'm glazing big surfaces, I love this big 3-inch one for applying the glaze, especially platters and plates and vases, things like that. Now, the drawback to goat hair is the hair is really soft and it's fragile. It's a great bristle for glazing, but they tend to shed. And so with any of these, you will tend to get some loose hairs in there. The hairs will usually burn away. It's not a big deal, but some people are really bothered by it when they lose hair. The other thing that happens because of fan brushes, this dome shape on them, if you're a studio and you hear this scraping sound, it's usually your customers pressing so hard that the bristles are bending, and this domed shape of the ferrule sometimes cuts the hair away. And so you'll end up with what we call a whale's tail, where there's no bristles in the middle and you have bristles on the side, and people will be like, well, how come all the bristles fall out in the middle? It's not that the bristles are necessarily falling out or that the brush is separating. It's usually that hair is breaking away in the middle because they are pressing so hard when they glaze. And so if you hear that scraping sound on the bisque, it's probably that ferrule scraping, and it's cutting the hair away, and you're going to get a whale's tail brush. So great hair. So to combat that, Royal came out with the synthetic that's really soft, just like the natural goat hair, but it's a stronger hair. So it doesn't shed like the goat hair will do, and it's much more durable if they do scrape. Now, eventually, this hair can get cut away too. So then if you have a lot of problems with that, use a mop brush. And there are mop brushes that come with in goat hair and the same synthetic hair. Royal had come out with this mop brush, and I was like, that is just a beautiful hair. I'm like, that would be great in a fan brush. It would be way more durable. And so we created a series of fan brushes. And there's 4 different sizes in this. There's a 12, a 10, an 8, and a 6. Oops, that isn't the one I was looking for there.
There's just a quick question about clay.
Yeah.
Can you use, wait, where is it now? Polymer clay in the clay puzzle molds?
Yeah, you should be able to. I would not, leave any clay in there. Like if you get a little bit of a residue or something, I would try to get that off right away. But yeah, you should be able to use polymer clay inside the molds as well. Yep. So there's 4 sizes of the fan brushes. The size 6, which is the smallest one, has been out of stock for almost a year now. I don't know if we're ever going to see that brush again, but the 8 and 10 are my favorites. The 12 sometimes gets a little floppy for me on when I'm loading it up with glaze. You'll also find mop brushes like this with dark hair that are a real soft hair as well, synthetic and natural hair. All right. So when I apply the clear glaze on these, I want to use either a goat hair brush or a synthetic brush, and I'm just going to open my clear glaze here, pour a little into a cup. I'm not going to spend a great deal of time putting clear glaze on, but we'll talk about that here. So as I do this, I will load the fan brush up, and I will kind of dab it on. And if the glaze runs onto the inside, I'm not worried. It's clear glaze. The inside doesn't have to be clear glazed. If you want to glaze the inside, you can. But you can see I'm just kind of dabbing, and I'm letting it go down into the crevices, but I'm not brushing and brushing and brushing because I don't want to soften that color and have it smear on me.
Just so you know, there's some people who are planning to have you write prescriptions that your products are emotionally therapeutic so that they can use their HSA or FSA.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
I said you wouldn't do well as a doctor, but
no,
to write a prescription, but
yeah. I'll create a little pad for prescriptions. I've got little cups here that are kind of like little medicine cups, so we go through a lot of those too. Speaking of medical, I almost pushed Janine down the steps coming down here tonight. We had the dogs were trying to get through. I was putting baby gate at the top of the steps, or they come and they lay at the bottom of the steps, and they're just pathetic because they can't get in by us, and they will whine and howl, and oh, it's painful. So she was trying to come down the steps and was trying to keep the dogs from coming down. I was coming with the baby gate, and I was backing up, and I backed into her as she was standing at the top of the steps, trying to prevent the dogs from coming through. But I thought she was walking down the steps, and I backed into her. And the worst thing, she's got a beer, and she almost spilled the beer. I mean, that would have been more tragic, but I would have hated to have come on and...
I had my hands full and was not holding onto the railing. I had my iPad, my phone, and my beer, and I was like, damn it, if you spill my beer, you're in trouble.
Yeah, the iPad could have gotten dropped and went down the steps.
Never mind, I cracked my hood open or something, but...
So now I've got one coat of clear glaze on there. I'll let that dry, and I'll put a second coat on, because the stroking coat, it's heavy down in the crevices, and because stroking coat is a fritted product, which means it would fire out glossy if it's on heavy enough, that's basically the equivalent of a half a coat in the crevices. And so, you know, it would have a little bit of a shine to it. So I'm not worried about getting into every single part of that. If I get any dripping on the inside, I don't really care because it'll be a little bit shinier in those areas. If I wanted to glaze the inside, I could, but I don't have to. All right. Same thing with this. Kind of dab it on, let it puddle. Now on here, you've got holes that we had put in. If you don't do the holes, you don't have to worry about it. But if you do the holes, that clear glaze might plug those up. Take a toothpick or a needle tool and clean those out before firing. If they fill in with glaze and they fuse shut, it can be a challenge to get that glaze out of there without chipping the piece. There are diamond-tipped drill bits that you can use a drill or a Dremel to clean those holes out. And if you didn't see last night, the reason I put those holes in is because we can put the little plastic lights in these after firing, so I can use the clear lights, pin lights in there, or I can use blue, and these come in all different colors, and they can be stuck in there, and then when you put a light under it or a string of lights, those will all light up as well. All right, so I'm going to set those aside. Let's talk about overglazes. A lot of people are afraid of overglazes. They're really not scary. They do smell, so you want to make sure that you're working in a well-ventilated area or wearing a mask. And the overglazes that we carry were made by Duncan, and as I think most of you know, Mako purchased the Duncan color line when Duncan made the decision to get out of the ceramic business. A lot of people think that Mako approached them and bought the company, and they didn't. It was Duncan who wanted to get out, but Mako bought it, and so all of what I have in stock still has the Duncan label on it. It is changing over to a Mako product, but we've got Mother of Pearl, and that's what gives you that iridescent finish, and it's really hard to probably see the difference in the camera, but the blue one has the Mother of Pearl on it. The green one does not, and it adds luster, and when I look at this, it's got, you know, lots of color to it. So we're going to do Mother of Pearl on this little green sphere. Mother of Pearl by itself is blue in color. There are different brands on the market that maybe have different colors. There is Essence. Essence is clear. This is not a color. This is the cleaner for all of the Overglaze products. And then we've got two different types of gold, yellow gold and a white gold. So we have the bright gold and we have the premium gold. The difference is the amount of gold that's in there. Now the bottles were always these 2-gram bottles, but during COVID with vaccines, the little 2-gram bottles, there's a shortage of those, and so they had to go with this larger bottle. So there's the same amount of gold in each of these containers. They just had to go with a bigger bottle temporarily until they can get these little bottles again. But the difference between the bright gold and the premium gold is the amount of gold that's in it. These are made with real gold. They're pricey, but they go a long way. So this little 2-gram bottle, I actually did the 3 different tops of these with the bright gold and the white gold on the tops. And I had, when I started dipping into the bottle, there was hardly even a layer of the gold on the bottom of the bottle. A bottle of this lasts me for years. And I was able to do all of those, and there's still some gold left in that bottle. So it's a little 2-gram amount of color, pricey, but it goes a long, long way. But the premium gold has twice the gold, I believe, as the bright gold. So this even goes further and gives you a little bit brighter gold. I've always used the bright gold just because of price, and I get good results with it. Some people really like the premium gold and see the advantage to that higher price. And then there is the white gold, which is basically like silver. And it's kind of hard to see in the camera, but the top of this is done with the white gold. This is done with the yellow gold. One of the tips that I'm going to offer with using the yellow gold is, instead of clear glazing the surface, because the overglazes need to go over a glaze. So if it's a gloss glaze, the gold will come out shiny. If it is a matte glaze, the gold will come out matte, the white gold or the yellow gold. So instead of doing clear glaze behind it, if you do like a yellow gold color behind it, if you don't get the color on real good, you won't see white areas, you will see yellow, and a lot of times it kind of disguises any areas that are a little bit thin. And I purposely did the gold on here, and I didn't do it real heavy in areas. And if you look real close, you can see the yellow. And I can put more gold on here, which is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to refire these. So I'll show you that tonight, that we're going to do that. But we'll do the Mother of Pearl first. Again, well-ventilated area, or wear a mask, and like a respirator mask is going to be best. Mako just did some videos on overglazes that are really good that you'll find on their website. They recently sent out some emails with it. There was one that I really thought was cool where they took the gold and put it on a tile and they let it dry, and then they scraped it off with a tool and it made like gold glitter on top of a piece, and they sprayed it with hairspray so that glitter ended up sticking to the hairspray on the piece, and they fired it and the hairspray burns away. The brush that I'm going to use for Mother of Pearl is a mop brush, and I've got a new one here somewhere in my pile of brushes. Okay, I thought I put a new one in here. This actually is, it's the same, I can't find the little one here, it's the same hair as this larger mop brush, but because I've used it with the mother of pearl, it's tinted it blue. So this is a synthetic, and the reason I like this is it's soft, but it doesn't shed like the goat hair mop brushes will do. So pick up a little bit of color. In the surface that you're working on, like I said, it's glazed, it's fired. It'll work on low fire glazes, it'll work on high fire glazes. But you also want to, if the piece has been sitting around for a while, clean it well with something like alcohol. Clean the surface to get any oils and things off of there. My hands are really dry, so I wasn't worried about touching it, that I was getting oils on there. If there are oils, sometimes the color will repel in those areas and you'll see it right away. You can always clean those areas off with alcohol, let it dry, and go back and reapply the color. When you apply mother of pearl, it looks blue, and it is not pretty, but you'll see that I'm going in a circular motion. So you want to really swirl, and the more you swirl, the better your color is going to be versus just painting it on straight. So swirling will give you really good results. And this is real fluid. Now, you can see how heavy this is here versus over here. That's too heavy. If you get mother of pearl on too heavy, it'll powder when it's fired. You'll usually still get some iridescent finish there, but it's not as nice as areas where you've brushed it out. So a little bit of this goes a long, long way, and it goes on real fast. Again, I'm not worried about getting onto the inside of this. I'm just doing it on the outside, and I want to get anywhere that I've got the color on a little bit thicker. I'm just kind of going back over it, swirling, so I get really good results with that. And that's it. That's ready to be fired. Nice thing with the coil ones, I can go like this with the brush handle, and I can set it down, and I don't have to touch it with my fingers.
There was someone a little while back that said that they use Q-tips for clearing out the holes too, because they're absorbent and.
Yep.
Let's see. Oh, and then isn't it really important to use mother of pearl brush only for mother of pearl?
Yep.
Same with golds.
Yep, and I was just going to talk about that because I was going to pull up my gold brushes. My mother of pearl, it's really easy to see, and I have a bin with all of my overglazes, and I keep my mother of pearl brushes in there, so I don't mark the handle of it necessarily. But I want to talk first about cleaning this out. So I usually will take and rub this on a clean paper towel to get most of the mother of pearl out of the brush. A lot of people will take their essence and they will clean the brush out, and they will contaminate the whole bottle, because once you dip that brush in, because it's so fluid, you usually will have mother of pearl dripping into the brush. So instead of that, I will take a clean paper towel, I will get some of the essence on the paper towel, and then I will wipe over the paper towel to get that mother of pearl out of the brush. And that's how I don't contaminate the entire bottle, and I will just continue that process until I get the brush cleaned out. So I'll go to another clean area, put some more essence on there to clean it out. So if you don't do that and you dip the brush in here, you're going to want different essence for each one, because you don't want to cross-contaminate with overglazes in the essence and with the brushes. So I have a separate brush for mother of pearl. It's a brand new brush. When I started with it, only used for mother of pearl. I'm not going to use this for glazing or washes or any other products. Only used for mother of pearl. So you'll see on my gold brushes, I put a label on there. I've got gold on one and W gold for white gold on the other, and I mark those with tape. I could do the same thing with the mother of pearl. I know Mako just came out with overglaze brushes, and I thought it was a pretty cool thing that they did. They did the handles of the brushes different colors. So the mother of pearl, I think, has a white handle. The yellow gold has a gold handle, and the white gold, I think, has like a silver handle, so that you can keep them separated that way. But masking tape or a sticker or Sharpie marker, whatever it takes on there to do that is a way to mark that. Now with the overglazes, I grabbed brand new bottles and I brought those over. I have to go grab my open bottles real quick. could have told Jenny where they were, but it would have taken her longer to find them if I told her. Well, no, it would have been like it's on
He knows
the third
better,
shelf,
yeah.
you know.
He knows what he's looking for way better than I do.
All right. So my gold, I usually use a real small brush. What's that?
Where's your mask?
Yeah, they can't see that I'm not wearing a mask. I'm in a very well ventilated area.
Okay.
It's difficult to talk with a mask on, so.
It is well ventilated.
Jeannie and I will be really high by the end of this. So I use a small brush usually for the gold because you don't want to waste a lot of that gold. And this is my little bottle that doesn't have much gold in it. But when you apply the gold, you brush it on and it's going to look kind of streaky. But it's not, you don't want to put it on so heavy. And that's when I said a little bit goes a long way. And I can brush this on. And brush it out. It will look streaky. If you have it on so heavy that it's running or dripping, you've got it on too thick. And then sometimes it'll come out kind of a milky color, and you don't want that. I had purposely done this one so that it was kind of streaky on this side, so that you could see the yellow showing through on there. So I've covered that area. It still looks kind of streaky, but it will come out nice bright gold in that area. Cleaning out the brush, same idea as the mother of pearl. Wipe out what you can. I hate wasting gold, so I always try to use up the gold as much as I can on the piece. And I don't use a big brush because every time I wash it out, you're washing away some of that overglaze. And with the white gold, it's the same idea. And these little holders, I used to be able to get from companies because these are such little bottles, and it's a little rubber thing with a base. If you can't get those, plastic bank stoppers can work too. Just cut them open and put your bottle of gold coming through on there to use that to hold the
What is that?
it's a bank stopper. So on the bottom of banks, ceramic shops sell these. They're the rubber
like a
stoppers
piggy
that
bank.
plug a piggy bank opening on the bottom. The white gold, it's the same thing. Now with the Duncan overglazes, the premium or the bright gold is kind of brown in color. The premium gold is red in color. The white gold is green. I'm actually using up a brand that I had here of another gold where the white gold was actually kind of a brownish red color. So that's another way to tell the difference when somebody, if they're bringing something in to be fired and they say they've got gold on there, you can tell which gold they've got, or white gold, just by the color, if it's green or red or brown, and if it's blue, it's some other pearl. And so that's how quick and easy it was to do that. Now these will get fired.
Oh, I was going to say, someone asked if the fire settings are different or the same for the overglaze.
Yeah, so when you do overglazes, generally the overglazes like the gold and the white gold are fired to around 018. It's not a real hot firing. 018 to 020 really depends on your kiln. Some people fire a little hotter, some do a little cooler. The mother of pearl is usually like 020, 022. So a lot of times I can fire, like I will actually put the mother of pearl piece and the gold piece in the kiln, and I will fire them both to 020. I know that in my kiln I can do that. If the gold isn't fired hot enough, you can actually rub it away. And so if you get pieces come out and you rub them and the gold is rubbing off, you need to fire it a little bit hotter. If you fire mother of pearl too hot, it'll start to burn the color away. So it's best to follow and fire to the cone numbers that they recommend on there and not try to do them both in the same load. But sometimes you can get away with it when you find that number right in the middle that works for both. As far as putting gold and mother of pearl on the same piece. So when I did the white gold and the yellow gold, I didn't have them touching each other. And it's not as critical with the white gold and the yellow gold as it is with mother of pearl. If I do a piece with mother of pearl, let's say I did this part with mother of pearl, and then I did the gold on this part, if they touch each other in the same firing, so if I do the mother of pearl and then do the gold on here, even letting them dry, if they touch, a lot of times you will get purple where the two touch. If they're done at the same time on the same piece and they touch each other or overlap, you'll tend to get kind of a purple color where they touch. Now, if you do the fired gold or white gold on the piece and you fire it on, and then you do mother of pearl and they touch, it's not going to have a negative effect. In fact, I really like the look of fired gold and white gold on pieces. Fire it on, and then do your mother of pearl over the top. It adds that iridescent finish over the top of those overglazes, and it's really cool. I really like the way that looks, and I'm going to refire these with more gold and white gold on them. I'm going to fire them to the 018, and then I'm going to do mother of pearl, and I'm going to fire them to like 020, 022, and they'll be wonderful. And I'll try to, they're really hard to photograph a lot of times, the mother of pearl and the iridescent finishes, but I'll try to photograph those and show those later on. All right, any other questions on that?
Yep. One person asked if you have, they have some old Lou Davis bright palladium.
Yep.
Can you tell me what that looks like?
Yep, the bright palladium is silver. It's the white gold that you've got with the Lou Davis. And if it's thick, you may find that when you open it, it's real thick. If you have new essence, you can thin it with the essence. If it's real thick, sometimes it'll get pasty because Lou Davis has been out of business for a long time.
Is that old Lou Davis?
Yes, and they've been. I'm trying to think. They've been out of business probably close to 20 years. So it's old and it's probably still good, but it might be thick,
Maybe
and you'll need to thin
on
it.
something small before.
Well, I've had some old gold. I found some somewhere, and it was real thick, and it was like tacky. As I was brushing it on, it didn't brush out, and I knew I needed to thin it.
And then if you do the body of the topper one gold and the hanger another gold, is it just for contrast purposes?
Yeah, and I did the white gold on there, and it was hard to see in the camera, the white gold, and I wanted this to be silver, where this was yellow gold, but with the light reflections, it's kind of hard to see, but
even in the lighting,
yeah.
It's hard to, yeah, that's all then.
Okay, so I want to show you guys a few new things that we put on the website. We finally got the rubber in for making the leaves, and so this is a little piece. This is a kiwi leaf. We had Lynn Tanner out in Oregon sent me kiwi leaves, and I had no idea what kiwi leaves looked like, but I thought they looked like really cool leaves. And so these are the new kiwi leaves, and these are now available. These are going into production, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them in the set. This was, I think, the second to largest that I had made, this little bowl with, this little clay bowl with, and raku fired. So these are available, the kiwi leaves, they're sold in a set like this. We also have some new hydrangea leaves. So these two leaves have been around forever, and we happen to have hydrangea plants, and so I wanted something that was larger, and I wanted something that was smaller. So these two leaves are brand new. These are on the website as well. They are sold as a set. Eventually, we will also have the set of 4 of them, but a lot of people already have the 2 original leaves. So for now, we've just created this set of the 2 new ones that are available, but you can see the graduated sizes with those as well. Those are now available.
You use metallics on the kiwi leaf, right?
This is actually raku fired. So that's a a raku firing where we take it out of the kiln when it's really hot. Anybody recognize this one? It's Monstera. Monstera, I think is how it's pronounced, leaf. We've got, this one is like a 10 inch by 11 inch, I think approximately. This one does have the cutout designs on it. So this is a brand new one. This is up on the website. And then we have burdock leaves. This kind of looks like rhubarb, but they're longer and more narrow. They're sold individually. There's this giant one that I think is 25 inches long. And then there's two smaller sizes. They're all sold individually or they're sold as a set of 3. Those are now on the website. And the long awaited for giant rhubarb leaf. This one is 23.5 inches, I think, by 24 inches for this new gigantic rhubarb leaf. This one is also going to start getting casted tomorrow. And I did talk about at the beginning of this the bark texture pads, so you can do these instead of the snowflake texture. You can do the bark texture pads. We've had a bark texture pad about this size always in ceramic bisque, but we are now casting these in the flexible rubber, so you don't have to worry about dropping them and breaking them. We've got the small one for when you're just doing small pieces and clay puzzling. We've got the bigger one for when you want a slab with that bark texture. So this has really nice, deep bark texture. This was actually made from the oak of our oak tree in our backyard. And I showed last night some of the new molds. So in a couple of weeks, last night I misspoke and said next week we were doing the packages. Next week I'm going to show you guys some new tree techniques. The following week we're going to be doing holiday packages. So these are the new little mini package clay puzzling molds for making little packages, and we're going to do ribbons with the extruder and bows on top of those clay packages. And we've got, these are the original packages that we've had for probably 15 years. And they not only can be used as packages, but they can be square planters and vases and shapes as well. Those are obviously available. And then we introduced new, slender, taller molds. I'm going to set this one on its side. So these are tall, slender shapes that can be used for making packages as well, or taller rectangular shapes. So we're going to do bows on these. I'm going to do different stamping textures, and I'm thinking the snowflake design inside of these as well will be really cool. So we'll be showing those in a couple of weeks. I'll probably next week be showing the finished samples for all of those holiday packages and trees as well. This weekend I'll probably start showing the new tree techniques that we'll be showing next week. I'm kind of excited about that. I'm working on a poinsettia tree. I'm working on some new different textures and stuff on using the tree form. So I think that's all that I got tonight. Any questions?
Yeah. So someone asked if there was an expiration date. They have for the Overglazes, because they have a bottle of gold they haven't used in a couple of years. And then someone else asked or said that they seem like they still work. But
yeah, the Overglazes, honestly, they may get a little thick, and use brand new essence, clean essence to thin them, and you should be fine. I know people who have found them when they go on a mold dig that are 20 years old, and they're thick, but they thin them and they work just fine. But don't do a huge piece. I would, thin them, test them on a little piece just to be sure. But usually they're pretty good.
Okay,
yeah.
And then any sunflower leaves in various sizes coming in the future?
So we do have, there are more leaves in addition to this. We just can't produce all of them at once, and so we're focusing on these that I just showed you. They went up on the website today. We do have some new sunflower leaves. We've got, right now we have the rounded sunflower leaf, which to me looks like a lily pad. And we did call it a lily pad for a long time, but it was a sunflower leaf. But I got tired of people arguing with me that it was a lily pad. And so we called it a lily pad, but now that we bought the company, it's always been known as a sunflower leaf. So there is the rounded one that's been around forever, but we are adding 2 new pointed sunflower leaves that came from real sunflowers from a friend of mine who grows them. There's 2 sizes. One is probably about 10, 11 inches tall, and then there's one that's a little bit smaller that's probably about 8 or 9 inches tall. The molds are made. We've cast a couple of them. I actually raku fired some pieces, some samples using those leaves, and they're really nice. We have pumpkin leaves, big pumpkin leaf coming out, and I bought a big elephant ear plant that's in my office right now. We'll be making molds for that.
Ginkgo. Someone wants to know if that's possible.
Ginkgo leaves can be made. I haven't had anybody, so if you have access to real leaves and it's something unique, send me an email with pictures of the leaf. And what I've done with a couple of these leaves that I had, Lynn Tanner sent me the kiwi. Oh, and we've got some other leaves. I can't remember what they're called. They're like a heart-shaped leaf that somebody had sent me. So what I do is I have you priority mail a flat rate envelope for about under $10, I think it costs to send a flat rate envelope with the real leaves wrapped in damp paper towel in a Ziploc bag inside that envelope. And then we will, if it's something that I want to make, don't just start sending me leaves. Please don't everybody send me leaves. But if you've got them, email me pictures of them and I will let you know if it's something that we would add to the line. And I'll have you send them. So if there's somebody out there with ginkgo leaves, send me some ginkgo leaves. Contact me, send me the leaves, and we'll make a mold from them. And then I'll send you a set, one of the first sets that comes out. I'll send you at no charge. And then we will introduce them into the line. So I don't have access to ginkgo leaves here.
Someone said they have some, so
okay, yeah.
Mike about
email
that.
me the info@claypuzzling.com or the harbridge@tds.net email, and we'll work it out. Because I've had a lot of people asking for ginkgo leaves. So if you have something really unique, send me pictures. I've had some people that have sent me some cool looking leaves, and I look at them and I'm like, those are really close to something we already have on the line. So we can't come out with everything, but I looked at a lot of plants this year, and in spring we've got all kinds of stuff. Yeah, I do. I'm not good at growing indoor plants, so I planted a whole bunch of new stuff around when we redid the driveway and stuff, and we'll have some new leaves in spring. But right now in the winter, we're kind of stuck with indoor plants.
Okay, I think I know the answer to this, but someone said they did some Azure technique on glass ornaments and they need to seal that with brush-on sealer, right?
Yep.
Yes,
Yep.
okay. And then what is essence? Can you show that again when you said about thinning it down?
Yeah, so the essence is the cleaner that's used for overglazes, for the gold, the mother of pearl. It's a clear mineral-based product, and you can use that to thin the overglazes. But you don't want a bottle that's been contaminated with a brush that's been dipped in cleaning out mother of pearl or gold in there, because that will contaminate your whole bottle of gold.
Okay, and then there's one person that said they were having trouble finding the correct size of plastic lights for a molded tree. One is tiny and the other has medium holes.
Say that again.
They can't find this. This is about tree lights.
Oh.
They're trying to find tree lights that are the right size for a tree that they have.
Oh,
Do you have any leads on?
so Glazer Ceramics has pretty much every type of tree light you could imagine. National Art Craft, also nationalartcraft.com, glazerceramics.com. Between the two of them, they have pretty much every type of tree light that's out there. Now, if you have some unique, there's usually like really small pin lights, there's larger pin lights, there's like small twist, medium twist, large twist, and then you get into like holly leaves and dove lights and candle lights and all those. But usually, between that mini to small pin to small twist, medium, large, something should fit in those holes, I would think.
Okay. I think that's all.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us. We will be back next week, and I believe it's on Tuesday next week that we'll be doing the live with Clay Share, doing the new trees. And then we will be live on that Thursday doing my own Facebook like we did tonight, and I'll show finishing techniques on those trees. And then the following week, I think we're back on Wednesday with clay share. And then the week after that is Thanksgiving week. We're not doing anything. We're going on vacation that week. And then the last week of the month, I'm doing gourd birdhouses. And then the first week of December, we're doing a live, and we're going to be doing some new planters. We've got some new molds coming out for some really cool clay pots, and I've got really cool ideas for that. So using leaves and bark and all kinds of cool stuff with those. So it'll be busy couple of weeks, but thanks for joining us tonight. If you have any other questions, feel free to contact me, and have a great week, and we will see you next week.